Hello everyone, it's Mr. Miller. Today in class we're going to talk about configuring IP version 4 addressing. So, do you know the format of IP addressing? Do you know the options for assigning IP addresses? How about installing and configuring IP addresses on Microsoft computers? These are all skills you need, and we're going to learn about them. So, when we talk about IP addressing, what are we talking about? At the end of the day, we're talking about two devices that want to communicate. In order for them to communicate, they need IP addressing. And so, how those IP addresses are configured are as follows. IP addresses are broken into 4 separate numbers, separated by periods. These bits are also known as octet. Does anybody remember binary by any chance? IP addressing is unique. And it's so important that you keep things unique. On this slide, you'll see an example of how IP addresses are broken into binary. Once again, the importance of understanding binary numbering system. You can see the formats and patterns. It's so important. So at this point, we've talked about IP addresses before in class and some other things. So what do you actually need to do in order to configure IP addressing or assigning IP addressing? Because that's important. And so you can see here, we're going to talk about assigning IP addresses. We have to configure our IP addresses, subnet masks, gateways, and DNS addressing. We've talked about all of these things before, but now let's configure them. We can configure it statically, where we go around computer to computer to assign, or dynamically, where it assigns automatically from a server. These kind of skills are important to understand for networkers. We also have a PIPA, which we'll talk about in a later video, where it's automatically assigning IP addresses to itself when it can't reach a server automatically. And you can see some information there. With that being said, that's enough of that. Let's get to the actual hands-on work. Alright, technicians, here we go. We're on the desktop. We're ready to configure IP addressing. Why do we need to do that again? Oh, that's right. We want to make sure our device here communicates effectively on our existing network. And so in order to do that, we need to understand where and how to configure IP addressing. On Microsoft Windows computers, everything takes place in an area called the Network and Sharing Center. And so let's bring it up. In our Start menus, let's simply go to Start. In the Control Panel. In the Control Panel with all these options, and many of you probably have tinkered in many of these options before, the one I want to tinker with today is Network and Sharing. The Network and Sharing Center is very important that you understand. A good percentage of your NOCTI exam, as well as industry certifications, as well as day-by-day usage or tasks as a network administrator, network technician, or any other IT fields, you need to be comfortable working in here. And so we're going to spend a lot of time, not just today, but many times over the course of the next couple years working in this area. But anyways, as I was saying, we're configuring network settings, IP addressing. Let's do it. Over here, you can see all kinds of different options. The option that I want everybody to click on today is called Change Adapter Settings. So we're going to click on Change Adapter Settings. Once you do, you will see all your network. Oh, improved performance, color scheme. Yeah, that's another video. I don't think we need to talk about that. Anyways, back to what I was saying. You can see here I have my different network connections. I have my wired connection, I have my wireless, and I have a couple virtual computers on this computer for virtual connections. Now, most importantly, before you configure any IP addressing, it's important that you, of course, do what? Make sure you configure the right network connection. Nothing says derp, I'm a dumb network tech, like setting IP addressing on a wired connection when you're connecting wirelessly, or vice versa. So as you can see by the lovely red X's on everything but one connection, I'm on my home network connected wirelessly. So let's configure IP addressing on my wireless network connection. Simply right-click on whatever connection you want to configure and go down to Properties. Now, being this is a school computer and I am not an administrator, I need to put in administrative privileges. Down in the lab, when we configure these, you are administrators, so you will not need to put in a top secret password like I'm doing here. Woo, look at that. It came up. Look, properties. Look at all the cool options. We're here. We're ready to configure it. This video, once again, we're talking about IPv4 version 4, not IP version 6. So simply click on IP version 4 and go to properties. Once you do, you can see this is where the magic happens. IP addressing, subnet mask, default gateway, and DNS. Notice on this screen, they are set to automatic. Therefore, this computer is going to get its IP address from a server, a router, or some central network device. But of course, as a technician, you may want to configure it manually. Simply use the following IP address, and simply put in your information. So my computer is 10.1.1.111. Put in the subnet mask. We've talked about subnet masks before. The default gateway, once again, remember, usually that's your router, how you leave your network. And of course, whatever computer is running DNS, which we'll talk about in a later video. Once you've configured your basic IP information, hit OK and close. And you'll notice it starts to change everything over to the new network. And that's all there is. Now, does anybody remember how to check and verify what their IP address is? Can't hear you. Simply, if you remember, in our command prompt, we can do the ipconfig command. Let's do it now. ipconfig. When I do an ipconfig, I find the right network card. I'm on my wireless card. And you can see here simply, there's the information. There's my IP address I just set, the subnet mask, and the default gateway. That's all there is. Hopefully there's no questions. In the lab this week, we're going to be setting IP addressing. So it's important you understand what an IP address is and how to configure one. And I guess I need to stop this video and configure the video performance because it really wants it configured. So this is Mr. Miller saying, see you in class. Hope this video was informative, and we'll talk about other concepts in future videos. Thank you. So of course, just like the movies, there's always a few other trailers or ending scenes. Here are a few others. Hopefully these things look familiar to you. We've done them in class. But now, my fellow technicians, it's time to know how to configure them on the real world computers in the real world.